What is going on, Panthers Nation? Carolina Dad here, your host of the Two Growls, One Roar podcast. Hope you folks are doing well. We are gearing up for the offseason. So the dust has settled on free agency. The dust has settled on the draft. And now we are at the point this year in the offseason where things get slow. They become slow as molasses. And as a content creator, you sit back and you're like, well, what is there to talk about this week? What should I, how should I spend my time? How should I keep Panthers fans in the loop? There's still a little bit to talk about. So we're going to do that. But before we get into today's episode, I do want to let you know about a new series that's coming for this channel. Y'all know as I continue to try to grow, and if you aren't here, please hit that subscribe button and like if you haven't done so. There's a lot of things that I do from a content creation standpoint, whether I have the long form podcast, which is what you're seeing today, and that gets published here on YouTube. It gets published on Spotify, Apple, and wherever else you get your podcast. So you can take it on the go, listen, all that fun stuff. In between that, y'all know that I put together videos with other Panthers content. So if something breaks and I feel like it's newsworthy or I should spend 10 or 15 minutes talking about it, then I'll record an episode or kind of a mini episode. I don't really know what to call it, and produce that content. I've also got the live episodes. So you see me streaming and going live. I know I do a terrible job of setting y'all up to let you know, like, hey, I'm going to be going live this week at this time. It's really just the way that it flows for me, and when do I have time to become available to go and live stream. That's usually when I'm like, okay, Pearson's asleep, Sarah's out, no one's here. Why don't I just go ahead and go live? And that's usually how it falls, which is why you don't get a lot of I guess, heads up that that's coming. And then also, of course, I post all this stuff out across other platforms. Luckily, I use Opus Clips. No, I'm not sponsored by them. Although one day we're going to get a show sponsor on here. It's going to be coming soon. I have a feeling, because if not, I'm going to have to start promoting it and asking for a sponsor, because we're getting to that point where we could use a sponsor, I think, to help improve a few things. But anyways, I post all across Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook, all the sites, everything, post all the content there. But luckily I can do it from the one platform and keep up with it. But I also understand the importance on YouTube specifically of short form content, 2-minute videos, 2 to 3 minute videos or less, just talking through one subject line. So all that to say, that is going to be happening. I'm working on a few of those. They're going to probably take me a little bit to get them fine tuned as far as like the flow, but I look at those as more traditional content that you may be accustomed to from a YouTuber, where you've got splash images or highlights or things that you're talking about as the video goes through. For me, when I make this long form content, it's like, well, I just don't have the time to sit down and do that and go back and add over 30-minute worth episode of, additional things. I'm just a one person team, and speed is my friend right now. Speed is like, okay, go in, record, publish, get it out tomorrow. Go in, record, publish, schedule for the next 2 or 3 days, a bunch of content. And that's how I'm continuing to grow. And hey, I appreciate those that are here, but I also want to fine tune it a little bit. In the world of content creation and doing this stuff, evergreen content is the most important. And hey, I know some of you probably don't even care that I'm rambling on about this, but I do think for those that have followed the show or may be interested in sports podcasting, it may be beneficial to hear. Evergreen content is stuff that likely just doesn't change. So instead of, talking about, hey, what's the weather like today? It's talking about long term. Generally speaking, within the Carolinas, the weather is this time of year. Something that's just not going to change, and people can easily reference, like, what's the average or normal temperature like in September in Wilmington, North Carolina, versus like what is it today? So if I talk about exactly what it is today, which is all my content, the way I go through the Panthers, it's going to become stale. So I have a few things like highlights or clips of other players and things like that, where some of that can be reused. But in general, a lot of the evergreen, it's harder to do. I'd have to get more into like Panthers history or kind of more of a precise breakdown. Sorry for the precise breakdown of particular coaches or players that can be reused. Now, I am planning to be able to do this with the content that I'm going to do for the 90-man roster. So last year, if you followed the show, the audio version, I went through and spent 2 or 3 episodes going through the 90-man roster, just blurbs, pulling up Panthers.com. This year, I'm planning to do the same, but I'm going to go and clip every single one of those into one short video. That way, I'll have it. I'll put it in a playlist on YouTube that can be easily accessible, but it's just another way for me to get out content. So I know that is a ton of rambling. Let's actually get in to Panthers talk. And yeah, so we've got the rookies getting decked out in their gear because that's the storyline that we're going to talk about now for the NFL Players Association. They bring out a handful of rookies. I guess it's more than a handful. I don't know if it's 20 to 30 or so rookies that go out. I remember Bryce Young and Jonathan Mingo did this last year, but this year we had Xavier we have, let's see, Jonathan Brooks and Jatavion Sanders. And Sanders, depending on how you say it. I don't like the 85 on him, if I'm being honest. I am ready for him. I know he said he wants to earn 0, and I know that was Brian Burns' number. But I'm ready to see him in the slimmer 0 number out there. No knock on him. Xavier's still 17. Brooks is 24. And yeah, right now, Saunders is rocking the 85. So we got to see it, but it is nice. You did get to see some of, if you haven't seen the video, some of the updated jersey combinations. If you care about any of that, I don't know. I'm hoping at some point the Panthers get a jersey refresh. So we did hear that you can have up to 3 helmets coming. So we know we got the traditional silver, which I'm not a big fan of. We've got the black helmet. Hopefully we're going to get a white helmet or like a processed blue. I really like a white helmet to go with the uniforms. But Panthers, man, Panthers uniforms did look nice. A lot of the jerseys that we saw, people wearing a bunch of white pants. I know the Rams, Steelers, 49ers all have different jersey combos. And this is totally not planned, but speaking of jersey combos, did you see the hideous New York Giants jerseys? Oh, wouldn't that be fun if they rock those? I doubt they'll rock those in Munich because, yeah, why would you rock that over there? I think they would keep that at home and to wear in front of their home crowd. But as we talk about jerseys, we know that the lining of the collar of our jerseys has "Keep Pounding" in honor of the late, great Hall of Famer Steve Mills, excuse me. We had Keep Pounding or the Keep Pounding Day by the Carolina Panthers on Friday. So if you follow Panthers on any of their socials or go out to Panthers.com, you'll get to see the work. So the whole team and other parts of the organization and front office go out to 5 different locations across the Carolinas. So that's both North Carolina, South Carolina, and they team up. I did see one of the locations was at the University of South Carolina at their football complex where they have like a Play 60 type day, I think, from what I could see in some of the highlights. But I also saw, I think, Dave Canales and team doing some work locally. I don't know exactly where they were, but it was cool, man. It's cool that the Panthers keep pounding mantra and a keep pounding day and taking the time out to provide service and volunteer in the community, helping, just get their name out there and just doing some good, man. These are all able-bodied people that can provide that impact. I don't know, at least from a lot of kids' perspectives, because I know they also go around to schools at times, likely means a ton to them. Now, we got a little bit to talk about when it comes to the off-season grades or grade for the Carolina Panthers. In my opinion, and hey, here's what's funny. One, I hate TikTok. Y'all may know that. I did not get a TikTok until earlier this year. So I have not had a TikTok. For my personal self, I don't have TikTok. I understand the need to be on there, at least right now, for the podcast. So I created it through the app. I deleted the app, and now I just use TikTok from the web browser and the Opus clips to post. And I'm able to go out and I don't actually have to log in. But every now and then I'm like, hey, let me actually check into the content and, just to see if I'm getting likes or people are viewing it. And overall, like there are some good videos that hit and some that don't. I think that's pretty typical for all the content that I do. But it's so funny to see TikTok's just its own thing, monster of itself. I was on there reviewing some comments, and generally speaking, at this point, X is a pretty safe space, to be honest. Like there's not a ton of negativity, at least for people that reply to me or say mean things. YouTube every now and then, but I don't really care as much about YouTube. I've kind of grown on it. Facebook's there's nobody out there. Instagram every now and then Instagram. It's not even really the content I put out. It's like if I repost a video, which I like to do to just like grow the channel. Whether it's a Bryce Young highlight or something, I'll get somebody that says, "Oh, CJ Stroud," just like, dude, what are we talking about here? Why are you bringing up something that's unrelated to anything that I just put out there? I don't get it. But I'm on TikTok, and I don't even remember the exact video that I posted. I think it was me sharing it, my thoughts on the Panthers record and how I thought maybe that they were going to surprise people and they would be better than last year. And had someone that really, I can't even remember exactly what they said, but like, oh, you're just a Panthers homer. Look at all your Panthers stuff. And yeah, of course you think that they're going to be. And I was like, yeah, I'm a Panthers content creator with a Panthers podcast. And everything around me is Panthers geared. I'm going to talk about the Panthers. Like, who would have expected that I would have that? And it's not like the prediction was bold. It said the Panthers are winning the division or 10, 11, 12 games or this, and this. I don't know. It's where I'm like, why am I even looking at that stuff? Doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. But here we are. I bring all that up because we have PFF, who you also know I'm not a huge fan of PFF. I'm sure there's some good to it. Maybe one day I'll subscribe and, it'll make my life a little bit easier for some things and I'll join in all the fun. But it's the biggest pyramid scheme that's ever been invented to have fans believe they should pay to learn, to get scores and grades from folks. And I know there's some smart folks there that are working there or have worked there, and it's not a knock on their work, but some of the grading, I've always talked about this. I don't understand how you could reliably take a grade that's provided from them without knowing the play call. Got to have the play call. But I digress. Let's move on. PFF gave out their 2024 off-season grades. And, across the board, I mean, just this is alphabetically. Arizona Cardinals got a B plus, the Falcons got a C minus, Ravens B plus, Bills C plus, Panthers C plus. Let's talk about what they said. So they said firing a head coach after just 1 year isn't great. But you could tell there was just no saving the relationship between Frank Wright and owner David Tepper. It wasn't even 1 year, folks. Like they fired him mid-season. Oh well. I am excited about what Dave Canales could be as a head coach. So I'll remain positive there. I am too. Here's the thing. Dave Canales is a first-time head coach, but he's been coaching for 13 plus years under one of the best to do it. Pete Carroll was and is one of the best coaches over the last decade or more in the NFL. And you've had the opportunity to sit behind him and watch as he built a very solid franchise and be a part of that. You can't replace that. The Panthers lost some big name players such as Brian Burns and Frankie Louvu. Yes, they did lose some big name players. However, I mean, it's funny because when these guys are on the Panthers, it could be because we're a small market. It could be because we're bad. These guys weren't even Pro Bowlers this past year. So it's like people want to over exaggerate some of these guys. And that's just two guys. Do I think that the Panthers will miss them and their production? Yes, there are pieces of that. But what the Panthers got in return for Brian Burns, the draft, the extra picks, all that in exchange for giving up one person. And I know we didn't get anything from Frankie Louvu because he was a free agent. But I always like to say, hey, this team went 2-15. Defense, sure, the defense was top 5 in yards allowed. Gave up a ton of points, man. So what are we really missing? Like, if you blow the whole thing up, you can only go down so far. What we lose or we win 0 games, you win 1 game. They also said, get this, said goodbye to Jeremy Chin, Bradley Bozeman, and Hayden Hurst. This alone, if you're a PFF person and you read into this, should tell you this person, whoever wrote this, doesn't know anything about the Panthers. You are talking about Jeremy Chin, who rarely played. Yes, in general, is Jeremy Chin a good football player? Absolutely. Do I want him to be successful in Washington? Yes. But people see the names without watching the film or without actually following the team and think, oh man, they lost that player. They lost that player. Oh gosh, that's got to be bad news, right? You're talking about a guy that was down to like 30% of the snap count or less for the Carolina Panthers this past year. And we're going to throw him in this article when we're, giving out grades and use that as justification. Bradley Bozeman, a great human being. Family's great. They did so much for the Carolinas. Appreciate them. But his production as a center this past year was terrible. So how is he getting thrown into the mix? It's just a well-known name so that someone can lean on it and say, well, they lost that person. They're going to be running Austin Corbett and Brady Christensen back there. They must be terrible. And Hayden Hurst. How in the world is Hayden Hurst coming up in this conversation? 1, 2. Also wish Hayden Hurst the best in Los Angeles with the Chargers. Get that matchup early at Bank of America Stadium and Bradley Bozeman. Hayden Hurst, unfortunately, suffered a significant injury, head trauma, concussion, missed a lot of time, missed the rest of the season after that happened, and just wasn't the same. But even when he was here, I don't really know outside of, he got Bryce's first touchdown. I didn't see that much from him. And it's not saying that he can't get back there, but we're really that concerned that we throw these guys in the mix of the Panthers lost. They didn't really lose that much in those 3. I can tell you that. Yeah, you could say Burns and Louvu, but not the last 3 on the list. It's hard to see the fumbling of the Burns situation as anything other than an impactful net negative. Brian Burns is a fantastic player. Brian Burns is another, the way he handled himself in the situation last year, absolutely. Like he did everything he was supposed to do. He showed up to work. Production wasn't there, but the production wasn't there for a lot of folks on defense, and we just didn't get after the quarterback pressure-wise, sack-wise, playing from behind most of the time, not leading in the fourth quarter. Like all those things factor into why or how he would or would not be productive. But I don't think it's as impactful as people are going to think. Like, and I'm not saying that his replacement in Wonham and Clowney are going to set us up for huge success, but I'm not as worried. They did say aggressive to bring in some good players like Jadeveon Clowney, Robert Hunt, Damian Lewis, and Deontay Johnson. Agree. The production between those 4 guys is significant, and that's not even throwing in DJ Wonham. It was tough for the Panthers to make the big draft splash they needed without their original first-round pick. Like this, the whole premise of you saying the Panthers get a C+ is, one, you're grading them off of a Brian Burns trade where they get X amount in return. Like, look at the number of players that the Panthers were able to sign. It was like 4+ players that they could sign under what they would have been paying Burns. Remember that, folks. We would have been paying Burns $30 million per year against the cap or the franchise tag, which is $25 million. With that amount of money, we end up getting 4 or 5-ish million, or 4 to 5 players around that range. You're talking 4 or 5 players plus draft picks in exchange for one person. That's just another example of people not being in the know with this crap, man. And you use just your justification is that they did bad because they didn't have their first round pick. As if the folks that are here right now, yes, I know Morgan was here, but the folks that are here right now are responsible for that or should be judged or their success should be judged based off of that. I can't buy it. Yeah, so he does believe Xavier Legette and Jonathan Brooks can be early contributors and that Jatavian Saunders could be tight end one at some point. So that was it. That was your full-blown analysis. C plus for the Carolina Panthers. I don't know. What do you think? I mean, for me, I would say B minus. It's got to be a B minus. Like, how could you not look at what Dan Morgan and this front office and team did and say, well, yeah, they fumbled. Like, they did way more than they should have. But let's take a look. So Falcons, I'll read through the rest of the NFC South. Like, while we're here, why not? Falcons made a huge splash in free agency, signing Kirk Cousins. They also brought in Darnell Mooney and Rondell Moore for offensive depth. After addressing their biggest need, the Falcons were left with glaring holes along the defensive line and at quarterback heading into the draft cornerback. However, they opted to use the number 8 pick on a quarterback rather than either of those two spots and overlooked the cornerback position entirely. If Clark Phillips III struggles as a full-time outside cornerback, and if their rookie defensive line class fails to make a decent impact, there will be a lot of look-back questions for their offseason. Maybe the Falcons aren't going to be as good as we thought. I know they got a lot of weapons, but all right, let's go through, get on down to next on our list, if I can get there. Got to be New Orleans. New Orleans Saints. They got a B plus. The Saints no longer have Michael Thomas, Jameis Winston, and Andrews Pete from last year's team. That's the same thing. It's just name dropping players. Michael Thomas consistently injured, hardly played, no impact. I don't even think he's been picked up. He's still available. So like, why are we throwing him in there? Jameis Winston, backup quarterback, like he is fantastic, but like why? But those losses don't hurt their overall outlook. Agree. So good point. On the flip side, they added Chase Young, who we know we tried to get here in Carolina, and Willie Gray also extended Tyrann Mathieu. New Orleans' top 2 draft picks, Talise Fuega and Kool-Aid McKinstry, can make an impact in year one. And I like the flyer on Spencer Rattler in the 5th round as a developmental quarterback behind Carr. Yeah. For my fandom in general, not outside of NFL, would love to see Spencer Rattler thrive and have the opportunity to prove people wrong. But at the same time, he's on New Orleans, so I don't know how much I want him to succeed. So B plus. And go with Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay gets an A. Tampa Bay managed to re-sign Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, Levante David, and Antoine Winfield Jr. this offseason while opting to not re-sign Shaq Barrett and Devin White and trading away Carlton Davis. In other words, they kept who they wanted to keep. Wow, what a storyline. The Buccaneers went on to have a very nice draft, which included an instant potential starter in Graham Barton, followed by good depth players. I think that people just hate the Panthers. Like, that's all it is to it. Like, how much time they spent writing up a Panthers write-up versus some of these other simplified, no efforts. I do like Graham Barton as a potential center, interior offensive lineman, wherever he's going to play for the Bucs. Tampa Bay, every single team in the NFC South will have or has a new offensive coordinator. Brand new offense for all these guys coming into this year. So, yeah. The only other thing, and I meant to do this on the last episode, and I'll try to pull it up now, is talk through the draft pick signings and looking at their cap numbers. So I did pull this up. Let's see if we can find this. So I did post it, I should say, on X. Let's take a look at, oh man, I hit the wrong thing. Sorry, y'all. Over the cap, Carolina Panthers. So the Panthers have signed They're all their rookies. Right now, they have about $6.1 million in cap space. Again, a lot of folks still wondering, when are we going to bring in a cornerback? Active roster, 89 total players. Remember, you'll carry 90. Let's take a look at the contracts. I think Xavier was the highest paid rookie as the number one draft pick, or first round draft pick, if I could talk. Xavier Legette, $2.2 million against the cap. He's actually making more than Jonathan Mingo, which Jonathan Mingo was a second round pick. Jonathan Brooks, $1.5 million. To go through this to make sure I don't miss anyone. Trevin Wallace, a little over $1 million. Jatavion Saunders, $1 million, a little over $1. We're getting there. I think the others are just shy. Shaw Smith Wade, almost $900,000. Jaden Crumity, $839,000. Michael Barrett, $818,000. So those are your numbers for the rookie class for the Carolina Panthers. And you know what? The other thing about this conversation around cornerbacks, I heard the same thing last year. I heard a lot of folks saying, "Oh, we need cornerbacks. We need cornerbacks." They didn't bring him in. Ejiro coached up the team, even a team that was decimated with injury, whether it was Horn or whoever that was out, and they were able to succeed. I'm not saying that recipe is going to work again, but sometimes you just got to trust the folks that are running the show that, hey, yeah, maybe they do know what they're doing. Well, folks, if you're still here, please hit the subscribe button. That is going to do it for me today. This is Carolina Dad. Y'all have a good one.